This video is admittedly a little low effort, but I think it's best to have something out there to explain the gist of what I intend to do in this series. I plan to go through the entire Mario franchise in order of release. Me planning to do this isn't a recent thing, and the idea actually first came to me around early 2016 when I learned about the list of games by date page on the Mario Wiki. For whatever reason, I specifically remember one of the most recent games on there being the arcade version of the 2016 Olympic Games. Back then I didn't have the resources to actually play these, so I just watched long plays of them until around Donkey Kong Country 1 and I got bored. Years later, I wasn't sure if I planned to actually commit to doing this or not, and around 2021 I found the All the Mario series from Quinn Dog Phoenix and saw that she was doing pretty close to the idea I had a few years prior. Her videos are great and I highly recommend checking them out if this series is something that interests you, but knowing that someone else had already started their own version of the series made me a little worried I'd be perceived as a copy or clone, or that I'd be disrespectful to somebody whose content I really like and enjoy. So I shelved the idea for a couple years. Fast forward to about a year ago, and my desire to do this came back. I started a couple series with the same concept, but with different franchises, and only ever finished one of them because the feeling that I wished I could have been doing it with Mario instead kind of clouded the enjoyment that I would be having with these other series. In the end, I decided that I think I should just go for it and play through these games like I've wanted to for almost a decade now. The format for these are definitely going to be a little bit different from the All the Mario series, so I'm hoping anybody who watches both will get a different experience from each. I should mention that the other series that I haven't finished, like Sonic or Minecraft, I don't plan to quit. I'll just return to them when I have the motivation, and Mario will be my priority. Now, what do I mean by going through the whole Mario franchise? First, I should clarify that by Mario, I mean all the related series that connect back to Mario. This means I'll go through every Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, and Wario game. I'll also play through games like Smash Bros. And on some other stuff that features Mario characters as guests. The earliest game to cover is the arcade game Donkey Kong from 1981, and the most recent game as recording this is Donkey Kong Bonanza in 2025. Okay, technically the most recent game is Hello Mario, which I didn't even know was announced until I was actively writing this script. But that's just a random mobile app, and it's much less exciting as a proposed ending point, though I should clarify that neither of these are my actual ending point. Tons of new games were released as I'm making this series, and I will be playing those too once I get to that point. Even once I'm caught up, I will continue to play new releases as long as I can. Before starting this, I was contemplating on if I should just use text to convey my opinions on the games as I play them, or if I should get actual commentary. I decided on the latter, because it would allow me to give way more insight on my opinions than if I just wrote rush descriptions as I was uploading. If it isn't clear already, I'm not particularly charismatic or entertaining, so perhaps my commentary will push a couple people away from watching these, but I think it's still better in the long run that I do it this way. I'll be doing post commentary, that way I don't have to worry about being informative while I'm playing. I can plan things to say that will actually give more info about the games beyond first time reactions. There won't be any crazy editing on these videos. It will mostly just be pure gameplay, but I do want to use the opportunity to add info that might not be present when playing the game normally. For example, a lot of the early games have their stories contained to external text blurbs or manuals, and I want to add those to the beginning of my playthroughs to give better context as to the events that are seen within the actual games. I may include clips from advertisements and commercials if I think they're interesting enough. Now, as for what I plan to accomplish in each of these games, I want to say is 100%, though what each individual person considers 100% will vary. I definitely plan to beat every game that I can, which is somewhat easier to define, but the way I view 100% in games is in the middle of both extremes. If a game has an in-game percentage counter that goes up to 102%, I'm not stopping at 100 just because that technically fits the qualification, and I'm not going to skip optional content that's clearly a unique part of the experience just because it doesn't fit some arbitrary guideline. On the other hand, I'm not grinding to level 99 in every RPG, nor am I going to reach the kill screen in the various arcade games. If all doing something accomplishes is maxing out a number that isn't really acknowledged by the game, in general, I won't be doing it. If the game does acknowledge it, like getting 999 moons in Odyssey or 10 million coins in New Super Mario Bros. 2, it's more likely that I will do so, since there's a clear reward for going through with that. But even then, there's still some exceptions, like maxing out Smash and Stats in Bonanza or beating 1 million matches in Melee, which technically are acknowledged by the game, but wouldn't really further my actual experience, except for making me grind for hundreds of hours. I should clarify that I'll also try to play as many of the archived Flash games as I can, because even if they aren't high quality or popular as the full titles, they're still an interesting part of the franchise's history that shouldn't be forgotten. Though with stuff like the Play Nintendo quizzes, I might just throw all those into one big compilation video since they're kinda nothing and keeping track of the original release dates would take more effort than it took to actually create them. Of course, I should definitely mention that not every game will be so easy to play. A couple of games are either lost media or discontinued and dependent on online features. Super Mario Bros. 35 is a good example. While I have played this game and I have it on my Switch still, I don't have any footage of that, and I definitely haven't gotten all the content unlocked when the game was still playable. Other games may still be playable, but content will be missing due to no online features, such as Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars. While these games are far off, and I hope by the time I get there will be options in place that will let me experience these, if there isn't any methods to do so, I will still try to cover these using available footage I can find, with credit to those who actually recorded the footage. Now, the Mario series isn't just video games. There are tons of examples of promotional material that expands into the realms of books, comics, TV shows, and films. While I obviously can't cover these in the same way as the games, I still do want to give them tiny reviews to give my thoughts on how they adapt the franchise to different mediums. While the popular films and TV shows are going to be comparatively easy to cover, stuff like the comics may prove a little more difficult. The Mario Wiki, as good of a wiki as it is, really doesn't have a lot of info on a lot of these releases. A lot are just barren pages with tiny pieces of info, and there's quite a few manga that I'm aware of that don't even have a dedicated page. Tons of these more obscure manga series don't have available scans on the internet, and those that do don't have any available translations to English. As somebody who doesn't speak Japanese, having a truly authentic experience with these is pretty much impossible. But I still do want to cover these the best way I can, which means I'll have to resort to the dreaded Google Translate and a whole lot of guessing. I'll obviously clarify when that's what I'm doing, and if any proper translations come out following my initial coverage of a given manga, I'll loop back and try to experience it better. If I can't find any scans at all, I'll still mention the series and try to give as much info as I can before moving on. Now, some things I can't really cover with a ton of detail. Board games or random toys are simply too expensive for me to be dishing out thousands and thousands of dollars to experience them, but I still will try to talk about them. At the end of each year's worth of games that I cover, I'll make a bonus video detailing all the stuff I couldn't cover traditionally, and I'll mention the board games and comics that I couldn't make a full video on. Any external media that really just covers Mario in a more promotional sense, like Nintendo Power or the Super Mario Club show, I won't cover with as much detail. While these may be Mario related pieces of media, they're really more forms of advertising than something that could really be considered properly part of the franchise. I think the only other thing to mention is that this series is going to take a long time. Chances are I'll still be doing this in over a decade, and by that time, the Mario series will be over 50 years old. I don't intend to rush my way through this, and I already know I'll take a couple of breaks in the middle just because that's how my work ethic is. But I do actually want to eventually reach the modern day and say that I've experienced the entirety of a franchise that holds a special place in my heart. Anyway, that's about it for now. Hopefully the format of these gets refined as time goes on. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll try to respond as best as I can.